Hey everybody out there, how's it going? Hope you're having a good Saturday. It is August 14th, and you're listening to Screen Speak, a podcast that is all about movies, life, and so much more. I'm Jordan Anderson, and this is my podcast. Really appreciate you being here. If you haven't already yet, please go ahead and hit the follow button so that you don't miss out on the latest episodes as they get posted every Sunday and every Friday. And also go ahead and follow the podcast on its official Instagram page. I believe it's at ScreenSpeak Podcast, so you should be able to find that. And then eventually there will be a dedicated YouTube channel. And I say eventually because it is out there. I just need to actually take the time to snip up some audio sound bites and put them on there because I'm just going to be using that as more of a platform to put clips of the podcast. But if you want to listen to the entirety of it, well, then you're in the right place here on Spotify. So again, welcome. I'm really happy to have you here. So for today's episode, I wanted to focus it on the movie Run, Fatboy Run, which is a movie that came out in 2007, I believe in the summer of 2007. And it stars Simon Pegg as, I believe his character's name is Dennis Nedry. We'll just say he's Dennis. He stars as a man named Dennis, who is a slacker of sorts that is trying to just kind of scrape by in the bare minimum in life and figure out how he can be happy in life, especially after he left his pregnant wife on the altar years prior. And so ever since he did that, he has really not been able to recover much since that, and it was self-induced. And I realize when I'm saying it out loud like that, it sounds like, wow, like this guy is awful, and this sounds, like a horrible setup for a movie. But it's actually a comedy of sorts. It's a romantic comedy. It's a inspirational movie, like an underdog sports movie of sorts. There's a lot of different subgenres that are going throughout the movie, but it's a really enjoyable one. And I think it's one that's escaped a lot of people, and a lot of people I don't think really give it the credit that it deserves. I'm not saying that it's a perfect movie. It's it's a romantic comedy at the end of the day, and it has some typical tropes that it follows, and some stuff that people would probably think of as being predictable. But I really think the movie actually does have a lot going on for it, and it's worth a look. And it's very funny, it's very sweet, and it's enduring. And there's actually a couple of themes in the movie that I think are worth exploring, and that's what I'm going to do in this episode. So let's go ahead and get started. So really quick, I want to actually just read the actual official synopsis, so that way you just get a sense of the story better than me just talking about kind of what sets it up. So I'm actually reading this off of Rotten Tomatoes if you want to know. So it says, 5 years earlier, nervous bridegroom Dennis, played by Simon Pegg, leaves his pregnant girlfriend Libby, who is played by Thandie Newton, at the altar. He now realizes that he made a big mistake and he wants to win her back. Unfortunately, Libby is involved with a handsome, attentive, and fit financier. That's a term you don't hear that much. A fit financier played by Hank Azaria. You'll know him from many voices on The Simpsons and other comedies like Along Came Polly, etc. But anyways, so Hank Azaria's character is planning on running in a charity marathon, and he's done this all the time. He's quite fit and impressive on a superficial level out of that. And so out of shape Dennis decides to enter the race hoping to impress Libby, even though he only has 3 weeks to prepare for the race. So that's the official synopsis, but there's actually there's a lot more going on there besides that. But yes, that's the general premise. And Simon Pegg, I want to start by talking about him. I think he really excels in roles where he is playing sort of an everyman of sorts, and he's kind of awkward and kind of a pessimist, but he has a lot of kind of sarcastic humor about him, I suppose. I feel like, at least in roles like this. And I really have always been a fan of Simon Pegg's humor in particular. If you've ever seen any of his other movies, most notably like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, the Cornetto trilogy, as it's also referred to. I think he's fantastic in those, and he writes a lot of those as well. And he is actually a co-writer on this movie with Michael Ian Black, who he's a comedian that I've seen pop up in a handful of things, but I'm not as familiar with him as I am with Simon Pegg. Hang on here. Sorry about that. Just had to take a quick sip of water, because when you're talking for a long time, you need to make sure your throat is clear. And I don't know why I'm sounding like I'm endorsing a water company that is non-existent. And where is this going right now? And why has my voice changed to be a water commercial? I don't know. You can just ignore that happened. Just let's just keep going. So that's the synopsis, and it should go without saying, but since Simon Pegg is a co-writer and there are other British stars that are in the movie, Dylan Moran is actually another actor who is a supporting role in this movie. That he plays the role of Gordon, which is his kind of questionable best friend, who actually also starred with Simon Pegg in Shaun of the Dead, though his character in that was much more annoying. And in this one, he's very likable, but he's kind of a schlub and a gambling addict and womanizer potentially, and just not really a great guy. But he's funny to watch. But anyway, so it's a very British movie in a sense. But I really enjoy British humor, if I'm being honest. I enjoy a lot of different. Let me think. How would I describe how I like British humor? I think the reason sometimes British humor gravitates to me is because there's a bit more nuance to it. I feel like, or at least subtleties in how it works. It's not as like obvious, like slapsticky humor like some American stuff can be. But I think it's very clever, and the humor in this movie I find very clever. And again, it's just it's very, very enjoyable for the humor, and a lot of that again is credited to Simon Pegg's writing, Michael Ian Black's writing together, and the direction of David Schwimmer that he takes with this. Which, if I'm talking about the direction of the movie, that's kind of it's interesting when I'm thinking about it out loud, because I feel like if another director, or it'd be very easy for a director to take a movie like this just kind of from its premise and just like take it and treat it very lightly and just have it focus on just some gags and little family comedy and things like that. It could easily have been done like that. And it's not to say that there's not elements of that in this movie, but I think David Schwimmer takes the more mature choice and grounds the movie in a realism that's very present throughout the whole movie. Because like, even though like there is some of this like kind of slapstick comedy elements that happen from time to time, you feel the characters are real people, and you feel the situations that they're in as being fairly realistic anyway, or at least they don't feel like as predictable, at least in my mind, for like what a typical romantic comedy character does. I mean, Simon Pegg's character Dennis, he is somebody that he works as a security guard in a mall. Doesn't really make that much money, lives in an apartment. He doesn't really have a ton of friends and things going on. He's out of shape, clearly, because he just doesn't really run. He's relatively a lazy guy. So there's flaws to the characters in this movie that, for better or worse, are relatable. And I mean, hopefully some people out there are not, doing everything that the Simon Pegg character does, namely leaving pregnant fiancés on the altar. That sounds terrible. But anyways, I'm not really sure where I was going with that. But the direction of the movie I think is smart, because there are subtle, mature undertones to the movie that just kind of pop up periodically, and I think they fit well, and they keep the movie from not being overly light, but still give it enough seriousness when it counts, which leads just overall to the movie having an inspirational quality to it, and also just a heart to it. It has a lot. That's probably the best thing I would say about this movie is I think at the center of it, it has a really good heart. So if you watch the movie, maybe you can pick up on that. Okay, so another theme that I want to talk about in the movie that I want to explore a little bit more out loud is talking about the idea of being one's own worst enemy. Because the character of Dennis, as I mentioned at the beginning of the movie, he leaves his beautiful wife, who's pregnant. He like on their wedding day, he literally runs away from it, and you realize over the course of the movie it's because he has a lot of insecurities and doubt in himself, and in his mind he did it because he thought he'd be sparing her like a lifetime of pain and disappointment, because he just thought he wasn't good enough. And I don't know, that's an interesting thing to think about, because I think there's a lot of aspects that we all have that we can be self-destructive on. I know myself, like I can be somebody that has a lot of great ideas, or I have a lot of things I want to do, and some days I'll be like really gung-ho about it, and I'll just be going at it and really feeling the passion and the drive behind it. But then I find like that passion and drive will like go in spurts, and if I'm not careful about it, I'll hit a point where like that energy and motivation like just will hit a wall, like a metaphorical wall, and I'm just like not able to continue, and that's where I have to like pull back and stop and like give myself breaks, because I just like can't mentally process more because I've done too much. And I don't know, at least for myself, I know I'm talking about my mental struggles that I have from time to time, which we all do. But it can feel like, I guess I always feel like deep down I can do a better job, and I think that's the part that can bother me sometimes, where it's like I'll hit one of these points where it's just like I mentally feel like I cannot continue on something, and then like I'll turn to food, or I'll turn to just being lazy or something like that. I think I've been guilty of that at one point or another in my life. It still probably happens from time to time if I'm being real. And so it's like it's difficult to describe being self-destructive sometimes, but I think everybody does it on certain things. And I think that's probably the biggest hang up with the whole thing, is that if you have any sense of self-awareness, it's not a surprise when like deep down that you could be better in a certain aspect or two of your life, and yet you feel powerless isn't really the right word, but you don't feel like you have always control, and then you're just you just kind of feel like stuck, and then because you're just so aware of it, that's what makes it worse, is because you're like, oh my god, like I literally can, like, it's like if I had like an out-of-body experience and like I decided to look down on myself and be like, what the hell is this guy doing right now? He shouldn't be doing that. He should be doing this. This is the right path. But to quote Son of a Woman, totally different movie, but to quote Son of a Woman, I'm going to do a really bad Al Pacino impression. I always knew the right path. But it was too damn hard. If you've ever seen that, I mean, that's a great movie in and of itself, but that's it sometimes. I mean, life can be hard, and it can be really difficult to figure out how to take the right path all the time, 24/7, nonstop. But what I think I'll wrap up on talking about that is that I do think you have to allow yourself to fail sometimes. At least for myself, I don't think that you can be perfect all the time. So if you're somebody like myself that can be very critical of their actions, their work, just everything that they do, like you need to, put the foot off the gas sometimes. Like sometimes you need to go at a more even pace, control yourself, and just really work on being more present and focused on the moment, and not think about so many of the different variables that are going around. I think if you can work on that type of mentality and discipline, which discipline's actually probably a big part of it, then you can hopefully take some of those aspects of like, oh my gosh, why am I not doing a better job right now, and just have a healthier perspective on it, and then do little steps to get further, so that you are not always having that existential sense of dread that, oh my gosh, I could be doing better, but I'm not. I don't even know if any of that made sense. I'm not sure, but I'm putting it out there anyway. So now you have something to think about on that. But to tie it back to Run, Fatboy Run, I like that the movie explores a guy that is not an athlete trying to do a marathon to impress the woman that he truly does love, but needs to realize that he himself can be good enough, but he's got to work for it. And I really, really like that aspect about the movie, and it is inspirational. I don't care if it is like trying to copy off of a Rocky movie or any other sports movie where like the zero becomes the hero by the end of the movie. It doesn't matter. I think this movie does it well, and it takes it from a point of view of the kind of schlubby, lazy everyman that is able to do something drastic like run a marathon for somebody that's never ran it, to become a better man in the process. And yeah, I think it's possible. I don't think it's impossible doing something like that. Would in reality doing something like that win back a woman that you mess things up with? I don't know. People have long memories, and takes a lot more than just one event to change the mind of somebody. But it's nice for the sake of the movie. I guess that's what I'll say. And that's another thing I want to talk about is kind of that underdog story. The underdog story within the movie, which of course is very much where the movie borrows a lot from like Rocky, is the guy's got to train. He needs to get in better shape. But what I like about it is that when he does finally get to the portion of this movie where he does have to start training and really actually taking it seriously, it's very, very funny how Simon Pegg does it. Because it feels very believable, because unlike some of those sports movies where you are dealing with an underdog, albeit athlete or team, that's the key. Person's already an athlete. I mean, they may not be a professional, but they have the mindset of like, I'm doing this as a team sport. I'm doing this to, try to become a professional athlete, at least in a lot of those movies where they do that. And this, it's like, nah, like this is a guy, like he's a pretty average guy. Again, he's a security guard in a mall, and he's not trying to be Rocky. He's not trying to, impress the coach. He's not trying to be on a team. He's trying to win back the woman that he loves. And he's somebody that's never taken athletics seriously. So when he does it, like the movie has a great scene where he like leaves his apartment, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go run. He's doing a stretch, and he's wearing these way too tiny shorts, and he runs for like all of like 10 seconds before he gets winded. It's just like, oh my god. It's a funny scene, but it's very it's very relatable and believable, because I know myself, I'm somebody that does like to run a lot, and I don't probably run as much as I should, but I definitely do it more than the character of Simon Pegg in this movie. And I can tell you that from what I remember when I first started running, it's not all too dissimilar from how his character in this kind of begins. Like, you feel like you can't really go that far to begin with. You don't really have much of any kind of technique. You're not really aware of like stretching or like the right kind of shoes. Or just how you should like be tracking your time, the diet that you should be eating. Like, there's all this stuff like that seems overwhelming when you first start running. So it's very relatable and very, very funny to see how his characters struggle so bad for a lot of the movie just to try to become better at running. And I have to talk about one scene that stands out in my mind. There's a scene where he actually does go for a fairly longer run in the movie, but then he stops and he's like, I think I got like a blister on my foot. And to this day, I have not there's not many scenes I remember that much where it is very funny but so cringy at the same time, because cut to the next scene after he says that he has a blister, and he's sitting in the bed, and his buddy there, played by Dylan Moran, he's there, and he helps him take off his shoe, and he's just like, woo, like he looks at his foot because he has a gigantic I mean it's a blister, but like it's a huge like pus ball basically, like on the bottom of his foot. And Simon Pegg, like, he knows something's wrong. He's just like, is it bad? And like his friends try not to freak him out. He's like, no, like, not really, but like you can totally tell that something's wrong. And anyway, the scene proceeds with them coming to the conclusion that eventually this cyst, or this blister, this big pus ball has to get popped. And the friend's got to do it. And I don't want to give the scene away, but you're watching it, and like, if you could see me sitting here right now recording this, like, it's like you have your hands over your face, maybe even one over the eye, because like it's so gross, and you're like, oh god, like, are they actually gonna do it? It's gonna be so disgusting. It's gonna hurt him so bad. But it really is a funny ass scene in the movie, and yeah, it sticks out because it's just like, oh, it's so gross, but also very memorable. But anywho, so getting back to the underdog story of this, I thought how they approached him, like getting into the running and figuring all that out, is very humorous, of course, but then eventually he does start getting better at it. And you do start to, really start to root for him, because you can tell, like, this is probably the most that he's ever, like, this is the most work that he's ever put into himself, I think, on anything in his life. Like, the character has been a relatively lazy guy for most of his life. So seeing him really kind of, bite down and really dig his heels in and focus on a discipline, it is inspiring. I don't care if it follows any tropes or anything like that. It's inspiring. When something's inspirational, you call it what it is. It's inspirational. And this is an inspirational movie. And they do have a nice montage that occurs at one point in the movie, because it wouldn't be a good sports-ish movie without having some kind of a montage. And the song, if you want to look up the song, I still remember it. It is from a band called the Envy Corps, and it's called Story Problem. That is the song that they use for this main montage, and it's a really good song. I actually listen to it when I work out a lot, and again, I said I go running a lot, and so it's been in my workout playlist since 2007, I guess, is when I first heard it. And interestingly enough, the Envy Corps, if you look them up, I think they're actually from Iowa. Though, you know what, I'm gonna look it up actually really quick since I'm thinking about it right now. So hang on here. I am typing here. Let's see, the Envy Corps. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so the Envy Corps, they're an American they are an American alt-rock band from Ames, Iowa. Oh, all right. Ames, Iowa. My little brother, actually, he went to college there. He was a Cyclone, and he graduated there, so it was very cool. But yeah, I guess they're from Ames, Iowa, if you want to look them up. They got a couple other good songs besides Story Problem. There's one other one in particular called Rhine Maidens. That's a really good song from them. So give them a look up. I'd be curious to see if they're actually still performing, but I don't know. They're a good band. Anywho, so going back to the movie. So a key part that I like about the underdog story that happens in the third act of the movie is once Dennis actually gets to the marathon, they allude to it at one point in the movie that a lot of runners commonly, even the most seasoned ones out there, can eventually hit something that they call the wall, which is literally a mental barrier that a person can hit when they're just exhausted beyond the point of belief, where they're like almost out of their body because like they're just so tired, and it just kind of hits everyone. It hits them all at once. It hits them mentally, physically, emotionally, everything all at once. They feel like they can't continue. And some people, if they really hit that barrier, especially in a marathon, they very well may give up, or they they may give into it, and just really have it hurt them, and it can mess with you. And I've been on runs, I know myself, where I haven't done a marathon before, but I have done a half marathon. And I remember when I did that, I didn't quite hit a wall, but I definitely hit a point around like the 8-9 mile mark where I was feeling the length of the run more, and I was thinking about it a bit more, and I was close to hitting one of those walls, but thankfully I didn't. But in the movie, his character does hit the wall, and I think he has like 9 miles left in his marathon, and it's so cool the choice that David Schwimmer makes to visually represent his mental barrier, because it cuts to not like inside his head, but the way the movie edits, you know that he's in his head. It's not real. Is that he like literally stops, and he can't move, and the camera's like panning. It's panned right up on his face. It's a close up, and it's like he's like at the edge of the camera frame, like he can't continue, and he looks down and he looks up, and he just sees this big brick wall. And he's like looking behind him. He's like, what the hell's going on? Where did this wall come from? Because he's clearly delirious at this point, because he's so exhausted, and he doesn't see anybody behind him. And then he turns back around, and he thinks he hears something, and he sees a little tiny hole in the wall, and he goes and he peers through it, and he sees himself on the other side of it. And the other version of himself on the other side of this wall doesn't say anything. But he looks at him, and it's just like he like nods, like, come on, man, like you can do this. Like he like waves him over. He's just like, come on, like the hell with this, crash through this, like let's go. And anyways, he pumps himself up, and they do some cuts back to previous flashbacks of the movie, showing him running away from his wife, running away from responsibilities, running away from his problems, and then eventually he is able to find the will to break through this mental barrier. And again, I don't want to just, I really don't want to spoil this whole movie. I want you to watch it. But that scene in particular, for an underdog, finally getting over the worst hurdle that he has to get over before he can succeed, is really, really well done in the movie. And honestly, just it's a touching scene. I really, really enjoyed it. Do you ever think to yourself as well, because I'm thinking about a lot of things right now as I'm talking about this, but I think to myself often, what can I do to be better? And I suppose talking about this movie, it's what's bringing that on. But do you ever think about that, like what you can do to be better? Like, I feel like the reason I ask is because I feel like when you watch a movie like Run, Fatboy Run, or Iraqi, or Remember the Titans, or I'm just throwing out sports movies that are inspirational, Rudy, etc. I feel like you watch a good movie like that, and they make you want to be better. Like, you're just like, wow. Like, you get charged. You get an inspirational boost, because you may be in a setting in your life where you're not really surrounded by people that build you up. And so movies are just really great for that. And so I'm curious if after you watch something like this, you take the time to examine yourself, maybe in that moment or long term, and just really look and say, what can I do to make myself be better? It's like, I want to feel a moment of victory like that. I think movies like that can be really contagious like that. Like, we all crave to win in one form or another, and success is defined by everybody on a different level. I know for somebody like myself, money is not the epitome of success. Certainly not for me. I've never been about the money, as I don't care how that comes off. I've never been about the money, and that's certainly not how I define success. But I do think about this question I'm asking you is how can you be better? I think about it a lot, and I try to work at it. And And so, anyways, I think after I watch a movie like this, I may work out more, certainly after watching it, because I'm all charged up seeing somebody take control of their life and be really fit and healthy and just being a better person. That can be contagious. So I guess if you're having trouble finding the motivation to kind of pick yourself up by your bootstraps, I think that's an expression. If you ever have trouble with that, you can certainly watch a movie like Run, Fatboy Run and be like, ah, wow, like I got this great positive boost. I'm going to start making some changes. As far as what the changes are, I don't know if I could tell you that myself anyway, but I could think of a couple things off the top that anybody could do practically to make their lives be better, just one step at a time. Because I do find that if you are trying to do like self-improvement, like really do it, it does always start with the little things. It's not like there's always some big euphoric epiphany that you have to reach. And you're just like, oh my God, like my life, I'm having like a moment now of clarity. Oh, like everything's changing for me. I'm so moved. Like it's not always going to play out that way. So let me give some examples of things I think you could actually do to make yourself be in a better place. I do think it starts with the little things, and discipline is required in order to do it. So you can't just do any of these things once. You have to do them a couple of times. First thing I would say is just make your bed every morning. There's actually a great book called Make Your Bed, which I'm gonna look up the author of that right now because I don't have the book in front of me, but it's one I recommend actually from a lot of people to read because it's a very easy read, but there is also really good advice in it. Here it is. So it's called Make Your Bed, and it's from William H. McRaven, who he was an admiral. I'm reading some of this online right now to make sure I'm giving you the right information. He was a U.S. Navy admiral. I don't know his whole life story and whatnot. But the book, I believe, is from a big speech that he gave at one point. I think it was at the University of Austin in Texas. And anyways, it's a very inspiring speech, and he talks about a lot of practical things that he learned from being in the Navy and life that he utilizes to this day. And hang on. And make your bed, which is the title of the book, talks about how if you do make your bed every morning, one, it establishes a consistent pattern of behavior. It also creates a level of discipline and expectation of yourself. And the biggest benefit of that is that you start every day off with a win. You do something right, literally every day to start off your day. And as little of a behavior as that is, and as an action, the impact of it can be big, because you may need to just do something like that to start your day off and be more positive and not have it feel, if you're depressed or anxious or a lot of these other feelings that you could wake up with first thing in the morning. This is a great way to start to get out of that cycle. Another thing I know I always try to tell people to do too is just write things down. I really love journaling. I'm not saying that I have like a book that I am writing, or I don't have a diary or anything like that, but I really do like writing down things just to help me remember it, to help me practice it. If I hear something like a quote or a piece of advice that somebody tells me, it's like I almost wish I could carry a notepad with me everywhere I went. And then to-do lists, that's another very big one. Definitely figure out a good to-do list system. The physical act of crossing something off a list that you get done feels great, and it gives you fuel to keep going. And last thing I would say about getting better, because that's not what this podcast is about. I'm not doing a whole episode on trying to talk you up and make you be a better man. I'm sure there is, or a better woman too. Who knows? Excuse me. It's not about that, but I would say, hang on. Oh my gosh, my train of thought just it almost, oh my gosh, Jordan, stay on it. You're recording. We're not going back. The last thing, okay, I remember now. The last thing I would say on how you can be better is really be mindful of the people you surround yourselves with. And I'm really dead serious about that. I think, some of us are lucky to be around great people right from the get-go, or we're fortunate enough that we meet them in some of the settings that life is able to give us. But others, not so much. I think that we can be victims of circumstance, of a lot of different things, and we're not always having those opportunities to be around people that root for you, that are really there having your back at all times. And people like that in your life, they're hard to find, but I promise it's worth looking for them, because you don't need that many. That's the key thing I would say with that, is that I think sometimes when someone tells you, like, oh, you got to surround yourself with good people, you think, oh, like, I need to, just become really popular. I need to have, like, a ton of friends. And that's not really the case, at least in my experience. I think it's definitely more quality over quantity. If you can just find a few right people, key people, and have good relationships with them, and be open with them and talk, that is going to go miles and miles with you, and you're going to be able to discover things about yourself that you previously may not have even believed in, because you're surrounding yourself with the right energy, you're surrounding yourself with the right attitudes, the right mentalities, whatever you want to call it. And behavior like that and being exposed to it on a good and healthy level is contagious and makes you want to be better. I really, really do believe in that. And so I would definitely advise that if you're maybe hanging around with some people that they're not really doing anything for you, there's no shame in just being like, you know what? I'm not getting anything out of this. Like, this is doing nothing for me. I don't think I'm even helping them out that much. And this sucks. Like, no, I don't want to do this. Then walk away from it. Honestly. I mean, sometimes I think people, they don't want to deal with confrontation, and they're just like, wow, like, I've been friends with this person for so long, so I they're not going anywhere. Well, that's you settling. That's you just being like, I don't want to deal with confrontation. I don't want to deal with change. I just don't want to deal with it. And you shouldn't run away from that. You should not run away from it. You got to face it, and you're only going to be better off for it by doing it. So, geez. I didn't realize I was going to be throwing out so much life advice. I mean, who am I? I don't know. Am I even a credible person to be telling you how to live your life? I don't know. But anyways, I hope you understand that I say some of this stuff because I think it's good to hear this kind of thing from time to time, and everybody needs encouragement. Certainly a character like Dennis in Fatboy Run, I don't know if he would have been in the situation he was in if he had a better social circle. I don't know. Not saying that it would fix everything. Sometimes people can have great people around them, but still not be able to find the will in themselves to go that extra mile, to go the distance. You see how I'm tying all these running metaphors in there? Because I have been talking about a movie that's primarily about running. Ha 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 ha. Jordan, you don't need to spell it out like that. We can figure it out. Why are you talking about yourself in the third person? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this episode is I have another question that I want to pose for the listeners. I'm curious, what would you do for someone you love to prove to them how much they mean to you? I'm just letting you think about that for a second. Hang on here. It's an interesting question because, as I've mentioned now several times, the character of Dennis is running a marathon to try to give like a last-ditch effort to show the woman that he loves, that he really does love, that he can be a good man and do what's right and win her back. And So I'm not asking the question to like, see like what you would try to do to like win somebody, but to win somebody back that you like mess things up with or anything like that. I'm just curious. I'm talking out loud. I'm wondering what people will do to show somebody that they really, really care for them. It's interesting to think about. I know for myself, I'm engaged. I have a fiance right now that is living in Brazil. And I can tell you that if it came between me losing her or having to run a marathon and like go through some horrible physical trial like that, not saying marathons are always like, or, a god awful slug like that. I just mean, I guess I'm just saying that I would absolutely do it. I will do 2 marathons, 3, 5. I will literally run across the entire planet if it meant that I was going to, if it was that, if it was doing that run or losing my fiance, I would do the run in the heartbeat. I certainly would. I would do more. I'll do anything. I mean, for her, I really would. Which she does listen to this, and so she's probably like, oh, like that's so nice, great. I'm not saying it publicly just to like get some, good praise from her. I mean it. And I don't know, it makes me think what else I would do. Because I'm sure there's other things I could think about for somebody that really matters, even outside of my fiance. Like if it was my mom or my brothers or cousins or anybody like that, a good friend. I don't know. I wear my heart on my sleeve, or actually in this case on my chest. I actually have a tattoo on my chest of a heart with a briefcase on it. Why not? I'll share the story with that. I have a tattoo with a heart in a briefcase on there, and it's actually derived from U2, the band U2. Bono. Yeah. Woo! Okay, that was the worst Vertigo impression. But it's derived from U2, and I believe it was artwork that they used sometime when they released the song Walk On. And it's about how no matter what changes in your life, your relationships, your circumstances, you should always be carrying love with you wherever you go. And that's always rang true to me. And so I may not wear my heart on my sleeve, but I definitely keep it very out there and open. And I believe in sharing it with people. And I hope that it can make a difference to somebody out there. I didn't mean to get so heavy-handed all of a sudden. Gosh, I almost got emotional talking about that. Whew. What's going on? Is this a podcast or is this therapy? I don't know. Dang, sorry, I had to pause for a second. It's interesting. But I guess where I get with all that is that I feel like I'm the kind of person that I really do truly care about others, and somebody else being happy is going to make me happy. So it's like you help someone else and you're helping yourself. But I really believe in that. And I don't know. I'm thinking like if I knew a guy like Dennis in the movie, and I saw this guy that I think his intentions were well, and he just had some demons that he had to figure out from himself, whether albeit laziness, lack of motivation, lack of education, lack of resources, depression, addiction. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but I don't know. I really would like to think that I would be a champion for that person. Like if I truly believe that they had it in them to succeed, like I would want to work my hardest to make that happen for that person. And it would have nothing to do with myself. It would just be to see somebody else succeed, see somebody reach their, really find the worth in themselves and be able to run with it. I think if you can ever be in a fortunate position to find that, to be in a position to help somebody like that, you absolutely should. Or if that person that you have to help is yourself, even better, help yourself, because you can't help anybody else without helping yourself. And that is the very last motivational thing I'll say. Wow. Okay. You know what? I think that is going to be the episode today. So I really appreciate each and every one of you listening. Definitely check out Run Fatboy Run. I hope you found all my ranting about this entertaining, to say the least, and insightful maybe too. Dare I say that? But anyways, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you all in the next episode. You take care, and you have yourselves a good start to your week, because this will be getting uploaded on Sunday. So anyways, have a good week, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.